Welcome to the Manifesting Doll podcast. I'm Barbara Orban from No Diet Babe. I'm a spiritual mindset coach and weight loss expert. If you are a spiritual babe wanting to up-level your life around your body, health, wellness, spirituality, law of attraction and manifestation, then this is the podcast for you. I'm here to give you the tools, teachings, and strategies to manifest the body and life of your dreams. As spiritual babes, we know to focus on love as opposed to fear. So get ready to learn how to implement spiritual teachings to weight loss, wellness, and your daily life, coming from a place of love and abundance. This is a celebration of how we can shift our inner perception of ourselves and watch our outer selves shift. You can become the best version of yourself, and I'm here to help. So let's get started. Hey babes, welcome to the Manifesting Doll podcast. I'm Barbara Orban from NoDietBabe.com, and welcome to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about why you avoid being consistent with your eating. And it's kind of following on a little bit about the other episode that I did on why you're resisting mindful eating. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it's a few episodes ago. Make sure you go check that one out. And also, I am starting a weight loss challenge, you guys, on Monday, the 21st of September 2020. So make sure you head on over to nodietbabe.com/weight challenge. Okay, so today's episode, we're talking about consistency around food, okay? Because one of the biggest things, like I get DMs all the time on Instagram, okay, saying like I'm really struggling with weight loss. I struggle with this, I struggle with that. And it's like, oh, like I struggle and I have trouble being consistent, or like I gain the weight back. Honestly, you guys, like the vibe of the messages that I get is all really similar. I know it feels like you're alone in the struggle sometimes, but honest to God, it's the same stuff that I went through and you are totally capable of overcoming it. But the thing is that I notice is instead of having a solution-based focused and going, okay, let me get together like everything that I've learned, like maybe from like courses, etc. Like I recommend that you do like either my academy and then moving on to Emerge. So if you're wondering which course do I start with, it depends on what your level of knowledge is around food and weight loss manifestation. Okay, some people who already have some knowledge around it, you're gonna find the academy. You might find it too basic, or say even my 3-day course, you'll find that really, really basic, okay? It's great though to come back to the basics. That's why I've created those courses, is because the Manifest Weight Loss 3-day course is so freaking good when you are overwhelmed and you just want to go back to the basics of law of attraction and you just want something that you can listen to and vibe to get you into the frequency. I do this all the time, you guys. I will listen to really complex courses when I'm needing some in-depth stuff. And then if I'm wanting to like wrap it up and kind of summarize stuff and just get in the vibe, I'll just listen to something that's a bit more basic and simplistic, because it isn't about the knowledge. It's about getting into the vibe and the frequency and embodying, which is also why I highly recommend that you do courses, because they are so good at just getting you into the vibe, getting you into the frequency, helping you have something to go to quickly and listen to daily to get you into the vibe and in embodying that which you're wanting to manifest. Okay. Emerge is like deeper. It's much more complex. It's much more comprehensive around your emotions and shifting your relationship to food. So when you're saying to me, I have trouble staying consistent, there's like multiple aspects of why you're having trouble staying consistent. Because you'll be like, well, I don't want to diet because dieting makes me feel obsessed, deprived, like I'm missing out, makes me feel like scared because I might gain the weight back. All of those things, there's multiple aspects to that, right? So like with my new course that's coming out about limiting beliefs, which is called Believe You Can Release the Weight, that's going to contain subliminals, which are really going to help you with a lot of those things. But also, if you're an emotional eater, you can't just overcome your limiting beliefs. You're going to have to work on your relationship to food because there's a payoff there. You're like seeking dopamine from food, and that desire to seek dopamine as a reward from food is overriding your ability to recognize your genuine hunger. And that's why you feel like you can't trust yourself, because you're seeking stimulation, you're seeking dopamine and stimulation from food. And that's why you can't trust yourself. When you say to me, well, intuitive eating doesn't work for me, I gain weight. It's like, yes, because you are still conditioned to seek reward from food. And that's overriding your ability to go, oh, I'm hungry, I should eat. Because your body saying, oh, I'm hungry, I should eat, is actually, oh, I'm bored, I should eat something to stimulate my boredom. Or I'm just feeling overwhelmed with life right now, let me take a break to wind down, let me eat something, right? So once you work on all these aspects, you're going to find it so freaking easy. You guys, it's a process. I am not going to say that I did this overnight, but please, if you feel like you are struggling so much around food, I've been there, and it wasn't this overnight thing. And it also was, my success was not linear. And that is probably the biggest thing I see people making the mistake is they'll go, oh, I'm struggling. That means I'm not moving forward. You will struggle despite growing in an area. If you are doing something in self-development, you will continue to struggle. And don't let that mean that you're not doing it right? Because then you'll be like, well, how do I manifest weight loss if I'm still struggling? Because it's a process, and success is never linear, you guys. You are going to have your ups and downs. I had so many ups and downs with my journey to manifesting weight loss and to experience food freedom the way I do now. My success was not linear. And if I would have fallen down and had this start and stop mentality every single time, even though I did, there were times when I had start and stop mentality, right? And it still worked out. Why? Because I never succumbed to the idea that I had to struggle forever. I had to rise above that and decide that I was going to create a new reality. And that's what I want for you. So when you're saying, I have trouble being consistent, you are falling for that story that you have to still continue to struggle, right? But you're also likely going from one extreme to the next. You go from completely letting go around food to being a perfectionist around food, right? And you're bouncing between those two. So your idea of being consistent is not consistent. Your idea of being consistent is being perfect. And you're not going to achieve success when you're striving for perfection. You guys, I still don't eat perfectly. Wow. If only you knew that I don't eat perfectly. Yet my weight doesn't fluctuate anymore. I literally did a story on Instagram, you guys, the other day. If you're not following my stories, go to No Diet Babe, at No Diet Babe at Instagram, like the @ sign, yeah, like not at AT, but just No Diet Babe. And follow my stories. Like, I did a story the other day where I was just like, Melbourne, we're in stage 4 lockdown. I've been in lockdown for basically this whole year, you guys. Like, there's literally only been like 6 weeks where our shops were open and we were allowed to visit people. I have barely seen people like anyone, because when we weren't in lockdown, it was just a very short period of time. So this has been the toughest year of my life. I am a very social person. I credit overcoming emotional eating to learning how to get my needs met. And now I'm in a position where I can't get my needs met. Yet my weight hasn't ballooned, even though there's been times where I've emotionally eaten and thought to myself, wow, I'm going to gain weight now. I'm going to gain weight. But I've got strategies in place that I teach in my courses and that I'm going to be sharing with you in my challenge that's coming up next week. Okay, on Monday, the challenge, I'm sharing with you my secrets, and also I'm opening up the doors to emerge, which I was just telling you about a moment ago, is that really comprehensive course. You guys, I use everything that I teach in emerge right now to get me through this lockdown, because there are times where I think to myself, wow, like I could just binge because I just want to numb out. Like, I just want to numb out. But I know how to change my relationship to food. I know how to feel satisfied around food, but I also know how to enjoy myself, like not deprive myself with food. And I teach the practical aspect of that and the mindset aspect of that in Emerge, right? But anyway, the thing with consistency, like I was saying, is if you're saying I struggle to be consistent, it's likely because you have to change your perception of what consistent means to you, right? And you have to find more balance rather than perfectionism. Because if you set the standard of being consistent to a point that's not sustainable, like you guys, I can't even do some of the diets out there to this day. I don't think I've ever been able to, for the last 5 or 6 years, to really restrict myself. But I've also got a different perception of what weight loss requires me to do, and also what weight maintenance requires me to do. Like, I had pasta for dinner tonight, you guys. I just had pasta. I posted it in my stories. But you better believe that I know how to connect to my body and I know how to tell when I'm full. Whereas before, I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to do that. And therefore, everything was about external sources telling me how much to eat, instead of having a connection with my body that tells me how much to eat. And maybe sometimes using strategy, yes, but coming back to how do I feel, what's my body saying, what does my body want, not what does my brain want, right? So in terms of being consistent, what's the payoff that you get out of not being consistent as well? Because this is where we dive back into emotional eating, where if you don't want to be consistent around food, it's usually because you love using food as a way to escape. You use it for escaping discomfort. So then it's like, let me get excited about food because I'm not excited about other things. It's not that you can't get excited about food. I still get excited about food, but it's still just food. Like, it's not my primary source of joy. But for a lot of people, they then start to, like, amongst themselves go, yeah, I'm not hungry, but I'm just going to eat this. And then everyone normalizes that. Everyone normalizes eating when you're not hungry, right? So it can become this collective thing of, oh, let's just like have a cheat meal tonight. Let's like eat pizza and ice cream and blah, 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 and whatever, with no connection to our bodies. Okay. So there's definitely a balance here. It's about reconnecting to your body again, but understanding why you really get a mental payoff out of being inconsistent. And like I was saying, one of the main things that I just noticed that people do is they are too strict when they're trying to lose weight. They're too strict when they're trying to lose weight. And then, of course, they create this relationship and association to weight loss that it requires deprivation. And their perception of food is all screwed up from emotional eating and constant dieting. So we've got to change the perception. We've got to change the belief systems and the associations that you have with food. So how do you become more consistent? You primarily want to work on your relationship to food. And that's why I was saying, like, what I teach in the challenge. You want to get to know yourself. You want to get to know how you operate with food. It's like when I want to look at how to manifest money, for example, or how to manifest anything, I'm going to look at my belief systems. I'm going to pay attention to my energy, my emotions, and get to know myself. You've got to get to know yourself, right? And so that's the key here, is to get to know yourself. What's going on in your subconscious? You gain access to that by paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Okay? And that way, you're going to get to know real quick why you can't be consistent. You're going to start to get to know yourself. And if you're anything like me, you have trouble being consistent because, like I said, number one, you got to work on your relationship to food. You're using food for reasons other than hunger, and there are universal assignments that need to take place a lot of the time are around your unmet needs. Getting needs met, whether it's because you're codependent, you don't put yourself first, you put other people first, you are afraid to be like, you're so wanting approval from others that you are constantly putting yourself out and putting others first. Another thing is you're just a perfectionist in your whole life. You're chronically feeling shame and guilt because you're not productive enough. So then you have to overeat because you're drained of energy. But that energy, you're striving for energy from food, yet you're gaining weight because food isn't the source of energy that you need. What you need to do is start listening to your body and start listening to being more of an intuitive person and reframing the way you perceive success. Because if you're worried about being lazy and you're overworking yourself and you're not listening to your body when you're saying pull back, you're gonna need to get your needs met through food because you're overworking and you're tired, right? So you got to give yourself permission to rest. You got to give yourself, you got to change your boundaries and learning to say no to people, learning not to give a fuck if somebody else thinks you're lazy or thinks that, judges you for how you live your life, right? So there's so much to why you're not being consistent with your dieting that relates to emotional eating, okay? So there's that. And then there's the belief systems that you have about your abilities, your identity, and whether or not you believe you're capable of being consistent, the fears that you have about being consistent and what that means, all these perceptions and ideas of missing out, fear of missing out around food, and like things like codependency. These are all things that I'm covering in my course, Believe You Can Release the Weight, which is coming out really soon, you guys, which will have subliminal audios to help with those things as well. So yeah, like there's so much to why you're not consistent, right? But one of the things that you want to do is definitely anyone who has trouble with consistency should be looking at their emotions in relationship to food. Even if you say to me, I'm not an emotional eater, chances are You are? Why? Because we all are. I'm an emotional eater. Everyone's an emotional eater. Why? Because our behaviors and what we choose to eat is directly linked with our emotions. So if you want to change the way you eat, which you need to do in order to lose weight in some way or another, you're going to have to look at your emotions in order to change your behaviors, okay? So that's why emotional eating pretty much emerge or like my academy definitely needs to be your first point of weight loss manifestation. Like no matter where you're at, I feel like that needs to be the course that everybody does first, because regardless of where you're at, even if you're under eating, you've got to look at your relationship to food, and you've got to look at your emotions and how you make decisions around food. That's really what emotional eating is about. How do you make your decisions around food? That's a good way to describe it. Because if you're not being consistent, guess what's that linked to? Your decision making around food. And your decision making around food depends on your belief systems and your emotions. So you're like, I'm not an emotional eater. Well, do you have to make decisions around food? Yes, because we all do. How do we make decisions? Not logic, baby. We use our emotions to make decisions. So especially when we're in unconscious state, right? Which autopilot, that's what you're using a lot of the time, because that's what we want to bring unconscious into consciousness so we can change it. And then your new autopilot, like my autopilot, I'm not constantly mindful of my food decisions, but my autopilot now is in alignment with what I want, because I've gone through that process of going from unconscious and incompetent to consciously incompetent to consciously competent to unconsciously competent. I hope I said that correctly, because it's actually quite late here, so I'm a bit tired. But yeah, so I hope that kind of summarizes a bit more why you're having trouble being consistent. I really want you to understand that you're totally capable of doing this, no matter how much you've struggled, like I was saying at the start. But you've got to go through that process of what I just said. You're unconsciously incompetent right now. So you feel like weight loss is really hard. You feel like doing anything consistently is really hard. Why? Because you're unconsciously incompetent. You can't see the ways in which you do things incorrectly. And then you go through a process of becoming consciously incompetent. And then you go, okay, so now I can see the ways in which I'm messing up, but I've got to put in effort, focus, and use strategies that I teach in my courses to become consciously competent. And then you're going to sit around that. You're going to go, ooh, some days I'm consciously competent and other days I'm consciously incompetent. And there's going to be some days where I'm unconsciously incompetent and I kind of bounce between all of those. And then, oh, wow, like I'm sitting more at the consciously competent now because I've been doing this for a while. Cool, but I've still got to put in effort. Oh, would you look at that? Some of this is becoming automatic. There's some areas of this where I'm unconsciously competent. That's cool. But every now and again, I still bounce back into the incompetent area. And that's okay, because most of the time when I put in effort, and sometimes I got to pick myself back up and go, what are you doing? Let's keep going. And then you go, okay, now I'm going to become conscious again. Let me do it again. Okay, let me go through the process again. Then you go, okay, now I'm consciously competent. And then you sit there for I don't know how long. I can't tell you how long it's going to take. For me, it took me months, even years, because there was certain areas that I caught on to very quickly, and others areas of my journey took me years, right? And now I predominantly am in unconsciously competent. And that's where I can't tell you enough how easy it is. Why? Because it's automatic. It's like telling somebody that's learning how to drive a car for the first time, oh, there's going to be a point where you're driving and you're not even thinking about it. And they're like, what the fuck? Learning to drive a manual is so hard. Like, I have to think about it constantly. It's so hard. And you're saying to me, Barbara, weight loss is such a struggle. It's like, yeah, because you've got to go through that process. And you likely have never done that before because you've always just gone for strategy, which that's just not what I'm here to teach you. I'm sorry. Like, I do, but not, yeah. Mindset is the foundation. We want to build the foundation, okay? So you're going to have to go through those phases. And like I was saying, you're going to bounce between the two, and you can't let that mean that you're failing or that it's never going to work for you. Then you're going to find it so much easier to be consistent around food when you're veering towards the end of conscious competency and even unconscious competency, because you are predominantly in that area, especially when it comes to emotional eating. Remember what I was saying before? Your behaviors around food depend on your decisions, and the decision making is coming from your beliefs and your emotions. So what drives your decisions around food is going to be your perception as well. And if you're seeing food as this alluring thing, and you're still operating from a dieting mentality and this like alluring emotional eating thing, like, ooh, if I go on a diet, that's depriving. If you think dieting is depriving, you need to look at emotional eating. Plain and simple. You got to work on emotional eating if you believe that weight loss is depriving, okay? Because that just means that you've still got this emotional relationship to food where you can't go, ooh, I want to lose weight. Weight loss requires me to be in a calorie deficit. It doesn't mean I need to starve myself. I need to be in a healthy calorie deficit, but it's not all or nothing. And I mean, if you're still looking at all or nothing, then you got to do my No Diet Babe Academy, because I really kind of talk about changing that all or nothing thinking around food in there. But, okay, anyway, you guys, I'm going to leave it there, and make sure you join the challenge. So nodietbabe.com/weight challenge. We start on Monday because we're going to go through all of this stuff in way more depth. So I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you loved this episode, I'd love for you to leave me an iTunes review. Don't forget to follow this podcast for more uplifting teachings to come. For more tips, inspiration, and teachings, come follow me on Instagram at NoDietBabe, or check out my website, nodietbabe.com. Until I see you next time, babes, lots of love.